Sajananda.
Hi, Greg. I hope you're settled in after all your travel.
Yeah, we got home about 3 or 4 hours ago. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. It's about me, and
Okay.
I got vertigo yesterday,
Okay.
and that developed into dizziness and
Yeah.
nausea, which I now have had all day, and I can't get rid of it. I've tried a few oils,
What did you try? I'm curious.
Chakaroo cleanser, hyssop.
And the hyssop didn't work?
No, I mean this is like no, it doesn't. I mean, I just keep going. If I sit up, I get dizzy, and then I get nauseous. And if I lie down, I sort of everything stops, so I'm just sort of been back and forth. I haven't drank anything. I mean, I've only had water today, so I'm not trying to put any oils inside.
And there no presence of fever or anything like that?
Not that I can tell.
What about a stiff neck? Do you have a stiff neck, sore neck, anything like that?
I know I have a really tight neck because my friend worked on it today, and she was helping to drain some of the lymph because it was so congested. So, that felt great, and yet still continued through the day. I can't really move around very much.
Okay, so this is like usually hyssop will knock that out, but when it doesn't, something's up, because we look at vertigo as being an inner ear issue, but we also need to look at like the chain reaction. And there's those 2 rope muscles that come down from behind your ear, and one attaches to the clavicle and one attaches to like the upper part of your breastbone. And when those tighten up, they pass over a thing called the carotid sinus, and it affects circulation to the brain, which then affects oxygen. But because of the tension, it actually will throw off the inner ear. So a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, there could be crystals in the ear, like little crystalline deposits," and they give you like this exercise, and the exercise basically loosens up the sternocleidomastoid. And so the issue is that those muscles are tight, which will think of it like this: the sternocleidomastoid, it's not just that it's a tight muscle, is that when it starts to develop trigger points, it causes either referred pain, or it causes like neurological disturbances, like it throws off how the body works. And when there's those 2 muscles get real tight, not only is it compressing the circulation to the brain, but it's also throwing off how part of the nervous system and the sensory nerves and autonomic nervous system are all functioning, which manifest as a disturbance in the inner ear. And so it's not just a circulation issue, it's also that it actually causes this disturbance. And so usually if hyssop doesn't knock that out, because the reason we're using hyssop is deepen the breath, loosen up those muscles, loosen up the diaphragm, all those things, it usually will knock it out. But if it's not, then we got to step it up a notch. I would continue to inhale hyssop, the goal being to relax the neck muscles and the diaphragm. But I would augment with a couple of things. Do you have any form of rosemary at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so rotate the inhalations with the hyssop with rosemary. And the reason why you're using rosemary is still an antispasmodic, but the reason that we're using rosemary is it's also a cephalic. And a cephalic means that it's moving blood to the head. And if you're getting more blood to the head, you're getting more oxygen to the brain. And so that should start to offset some of that. Then the other thing is, do you happen to have anise or anise, however you want to say it? Do you have
I think I have it in some little bottle somewhere from a
yeah,
cork.
that's probably good enough to take the little bottle and like tap it 3 or 4 times in some water, like get a good like probably 3 or 4 drops, and drink it. And if it's those little tiny bottles, like I do put like a few drops of jojoba in there, just so that like if people put it on their skin, it doesn't irritate the skin or anything like that. But it's almost all essential oil, so it should be good enough. So if you get 2 or 3 drops, it's like the equivalent of getting like 2 drops or so. And so I tap it good like 3 or 4 times, get some in there and take that. Then I'd put some things on your neck, just to further relax some of the neck muscles. You could use vetiver, you could use marjoram, basil, anything that's antispasmodic.
Okay.
I mean,
I did use some vetiver on the back of my neck just
yeah,
before you call, because I remembered, vetiver might help. So
yeah, and the neck is probably more the issue than anything else, than the diaphragm and everything. And I mean, it's a common thing. Like when I was treating whiplashes all the time, vertigo and dizziness were very, very common, because of the neck injury. And so anytime the neck gets compromised, that's always a potential. And so I would unwind that. But if it doesn't resolve, like if you do that tonight, if it doesn't resolve by morning, email us. Because then we just need to step it up, because it's not something that it needs to accumulate. You should literally start feeling results within an hour or two, like within, even if it's like, well, we'll do this and then we'll go to sleep. So the other issue is, are you having other aches and pains in your body, anything like that?
not really. I'm just pretty nauseous. The nausea is the other thing.
The nausea, you could also the anise might knock that out. If it doesn't, let that lay for maybe about an hour. And then if the nausea still hasn't diminished after ingesting the anise, then 2 or 3 drops of tarragon, follow that. And the tarragon should knock out the nausea. I mean, it's part of what's happening, like why you're having nausea, is there like a disturbance in the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which can then start to cause like nausea. In the extreme would cause vomiting, a little bit of diarrhea. But in the stages of nausea, you might get a little bit of where your stomach feels a little upset or a little queasy or something like that. And again, it's all still based on the neck and the base of the skull. The vagus nerve comes out of the medulla, the base of the skull, and then goes down into the heart and the lungs and then down in the digestive tract, but it's tied to parasympathetic activity. And when it gets a disturbance or loses some tone, or like the neck gets tight and compresses, like any of these things start to happen, it causes like a weird series of events that don't seem like they're connected. But if you look at what the vagus nerve or the autonomic nervous system does, you can kind of trace it to that. And so it's not like normal symptoms. You almost have to look at it as like some neurological symptoms. And it doesn't mean like a condition or a syndrome. It's just, honestly, it's just like that nerve starts to lose tone. And then it just causes this like cascading effect. And as soon as you bring tone back to it, all that stuff just goes away. In the extreme situation, sometimes we have to look at, there's a possibility of a potassium deficiency. But are you having like excessive thirst or anything like that?
Well, I haven't been able to keep much down, so I have some thirst, but not excessive.
Okay, but it's not like you need water like you need air.
No,
like it's not like I need, right? Yeah, if that's the case, it's just because you haven't been able to keep anything down.
Yeah.
And so let's do that. And even like by later tonight, like right before you go to bed, shoot us an email and let us know how that's doing. And again in the morning, and it should be resolved by morning. If not, we'll do some stronger, like like different evaluations and see what it is, but it's like that's usually what's gonna knock it out. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, usually the hyssop will knock it out, but that it's not, you start to look at probably that nerve is lacking tone. And so the tarragon is very toning to that. And we talked about different oils that you could use for your neck. If you have it, let's have you use marjoram, just
Yeah.
because super good antispasmodic, and it also very toning to the vagus nerve. So you're kind of getting two things for one application. So I would just hit it with all of that. Like I would
And
just keep inhaling the hyssop, rotate it with rosemary, and any kind of rosemary will work for this.
okay.
And so hit it with the rosemary, put marjoram on the neck, take anise internally, and then after about an hour, I'd probably just follow it with tarragon. Like
Okay.
I would just do it just because you haven't been feeling good for a day or two or whatever
Right.
it's been. And so let's just knock all of that out and then move forward from that.
Okay, I do have one more piece which I forgot about, which is that I've recently been diagnosed with osteoporosis, and there's some literature. I've been reading some stuff online about how the osteoporosis can cause the dizziness and the neck stuff because of the compressed vertebrae. And I don't know if that figures in.
Yeah, I mean that is possible. Like, but even with all of that, that's all still treatable with everything that we just talked
Okay.
about. Yeah,
Okay.
so even if that's the case, like do we know how progressed is the osteoporosis?
It's not as good as it was 4 years ago. It's like, I can't remember the numbers, but they're getting pretty low.
Okay.
Or,
So let's knock this one out, and then we can start putting the thing in play for the osteoporosis. The thing with the osteoporosis is we want to support the bone density, but we also want to look at why the bone density is changing, and a lot of times that is hormonal. And so we'll let's get this like normalized, and then after that we'll go through and put you on a regimen for normalizing the endocrine function, and then things to do for, I mean, I can talk about it now if you want, but I don't want
well,
to
you've
overload
already
you.
given me some stuff for the osteoporosis, the Vitex on my temples, Bible
Right.
leaf on my wrists, and
Okay.
Solomon seal capsules.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
was, what we had talked about a few weeks ago.
I would stick with all of that, and yeah. So we have you on that Solomon seal. I mean, the only thing that I would say, let's maybe let that ride for a little bit and see. But the only other thing that we might add to that is using like 3 wise men or frankincense and myrrh together, just to jumpstart like all the glands.
Uh-huh.
Like the Vitex and the Bible leaf are very specific to some of the female hormones, but like sometimes I like to do that and then treat the overall system at the same time. And let's just see how you respond to this. And then on top of that, like, I don't like to always have to have like a big pile of stuff for somebody to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, yeah, so like I try to always like, let's try to do this as minimally as possible, but it might be, the thing with frankincense and myrrh, like it really does jumpstart the endocrine system. And I do it for myself, just as the body gets older, the glands don't quite work like they used to. And so I take a pretty hefty dosage of that on a daily basis. And I notice I have a little bit more energy, I have a little bit more get up and go in my step. I'm not like, like when somebody says something to you, like, hey, could you get up and maybe do this? And I'm like, I need all the information before I get up, like, because you're you just don't have the energy to get up.
Right.
And frankincense and myrrh doesn't really it's not a stimulant like cinnamon or rosemary or thyme, but like taking it on a regular basis, all of a sudden I notice I'm getting up without thinking about what how long is this going to be, or like you know what I mean, like you don't have that weird fatigue feeling. And I noticed that even like the aches and pains don't quite hurt quite as much, and that's not necessarily just the endocrine component, but you know those combinations also hit inflammation and some of the pain receptors in the brain, and it just makes your body feel a little bit better. It makes it feel good. And so it might be something that we augment later, but let's get the dizziness out, the vertigo out. You're already on a regiment, and we'll adjust it accordingly here shortly.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I really appreciate it.